There we go. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shalom, hotep, peace be with you. Blessings, mercy, compassion. This is your brother Abdul Wadud, aka Questman, coming at you with another live soul journey of life, conscious black social media, the Light Dome. How's the family doing? Welcome to those coming in. I'm going to put this up here for your benefit as we progress in the show. Should you feel compelled to participate or to express questions or perspective, there's the link that you can use to participate respectfully. Pin it there. Okay, so give me a second here. Gotta make sure everything is where I need it to be. Okay. So as you know, today, or this evening, I should say, where I'm at, we're going to continue in our discussion, um, building on When the World Was Black by Supreme Knowledge. If you so happen to have the book with you or have a copy of the book, you can definitely bring it out as we can build on it. Otherwise, you just have to rely on your brother to break it down as best as I can, um, and I will be building on it and commenting on it on the content that we read. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that my phone was on silent. Okay. It's nothing like getting a ring in the middle of a live broadcast. So I'm just getting this together here. There we go. So, as you know, lots been going on in the community. There's been a lot of progressing, a lot of successful moves being made. You understand? I was definitely, just to recap real quick on the last live that I had presented, which was showing a celebratory presentation for Brother Ozone, aka Otha Wallace. We were wanting to have something that was a positive and motivative, you know, presentation. I believe it went very well. Everybody was, on code and doing and operating very professionally. Very talented brothers and sisters presented themselves with their skills. And salute to all those who participated in that live. And salute to the host, OC the Great TV, and the co-host. There was brother Ken, brother Major, myself. I'm going to say Tanya. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the sister's name right, but Tanya. So salute to all those that were involved. Any names that I may not have mentioned here, salute to you as well. Um, that was definitely a positive move in the right direction. It's things like that. These should be these type of behaviors, this way should be just common. You understand? Common feature. Just what we do. A no-brainer type thing. This should be stuff that we expect out of us as a people to be, to not only stand up for our own people, but to lift up, you know, our brothers and sisters, who are in the right, lift them up positively. You understand? Make righteous noise, as they would say. Um, so yeah, that definitely was a good move. Um, and for those that may not know what I'm talking about, just look up the it's on my YouTube list of I had to upload it because there was a part in the video where the sound was muted for whatever reason, so I had to do things in a way so I could get the sound. I had one part that had sound and one part that didn't have sound. So I took the part that had sound and put that over so that it was in sync with the editing. Um, so check that out when you have the chance. Okay. So one might ask the question, why am I so adamant about the learning of our story? You understand? Why is our story so important? And in the particular case, I'm talking about our ancestral story. Why is that so important? For me, one of the reasons why it's so important because um, as much as we pride ourselves, we are not like our ancestors. I'm talking about our behavior, our character, and I'm saying that not entirely our fault. You understand? It's not entirely our fault. The part of it that becomes our fault is when we willfully hold on to ignorance. That means when we willfully um, live in a way where we're accepting our lack of knowledge, where we're accepting not knowing the truth about our being, our existence. When you can already make a distinction between who you are and what you are not. For example, when you know you're not um, a Neanderthal and never have been, then you've got to build on that. You've got to build on what that means. What is that saying? What is the message being said when you establish what you're not? And when you know that the people manifesting authority in today's times are of those descendants, are of the species called Neanderthal, which is not a human being. The Neanderthal is not a human being. Um, then you have to ask yourself some very serious questions. If I'm not this species, if I'm not what this is, okay, then what am I and what makes it different? What makes what you are different if you're not a creature called a Neanderthal? What makes you different? What are you and what makes you different? Okay. I think it's very important to understand this. Um, Give me a second here. There was a little excerpt that I wanted to include right here. So, got a lot going on, folks. A lot going on. Let's see. All right. So we're going to do it this way because as long as I have these other windows open, it won't allow me to share the content of the screen. So bear with me here. Let's see, we can do it this way. All right. So again, when we can identify what we're not, we're accepting that, hey, this is not what I am. I do not descend from what this is. This is not our ancestry. It's never been our ancestry. We've never been uh, any of any form or sort of ape-like creature. We've never been a Neanderthal. Bottom line. So when you know that this is what you have never been, you're not this. Okay, what are you? And if you're not being, if you aren't manifesting through our ancestral way, what you are, then what are you manifesting? Whose way, whose behavior, whose character, whose personalities, whose traits, genetic traits are you manifesting? Let me update you in case you may have missed the class on genetics that lets you know that it's more than just about your physical existence. Yeah, your physical existence is a genetic trait, but it's not the only genetic trait. The whole of you gets passed down. Okay, the only thing that is excluded from that, because it's something that's the result of your present time, is your mind. That's the only thing that doesn't get inherited, is your mind. What a parent tries to do or strives to do is to pass down their mind to you through the form of education, the form of knowledge. This is our way. This is how we interpret this particular thing and that particular thing. They want to pass down their mind to you. That's something that has to come through your development growing up. But your essence, you understand, is passed down to you genetically. That's ancestral. Your physique, that's passed down ancestrally. Um, so I highly encourage that you do a deeper. If you're already doing a deep study, do a deeper study of your genetics, including the science of genetics. That means the study of genetics itself, like what this means, and try to when you take upon that science, that study of the science of genetics, try to not just study it with a left brain methodology. You understand? Because that's how we've been taught. Most of our way of study is based upon Western um, uh, methodology. You understand? And not our own. In other words, we've been taught to think like white folk. Okay, and that's catastrophic when it comes to trying to successfully be what it is and who it is that you are. It's a very, very problematic situation. So you have to train yourself to study the same topic, right brain. You understand? That means instead of trying to break down the bits and parts, which we're prone to do, because like I said, this is how we were brought up here. Try to see the essence and wholeness of it. Try to see the inner nature, the inner workings of it, the spirit, if you will, of what you are studying. Okay, so that way you can get a wholesome result. Research, and again, this is the outcome of this is real research, the real study of evolution, the real concept of evolution. There are truths about what is meant by evolution that we hear today, but there are also lies, or at least they're not lies, but they're not true for our story. I understand what I'm saying. They're true for some people's story, but they're not true for our story as Black people. Our story does not include descending from Neanderthals. In no chapter, in no part, in no element of our story did we ever descend from a Neanderthal. Our ancestors lived at the same time that the Neanderthals lived, and the Neanderthals were known to live in Europe, as we shown on the map some lives ago. But our ancestors lived in a whole different area. You understand, the motherland, as we would call it, and lived there for quite some millions, thousands of years. Some say thousands, hundreds of thousands, 500,000. Some say millions. All the same, at the same time as these people who are not our ancestors, coexisters, if you would, but not our ancestors. Okay. So again, that's why I say it's important. Um, One thing that I could do to try, I wanted to try to break down uh, our nature and the way we exist, the way we manifest, and how our genetics. Why our genetics is so important to us as a people? It's your genetics, after all. I mean, it's like this. Um, if you consider that cleansing your body is important, you know, so your grooming etiquette. If you consider that important, then why not the nature of what you're grooming? Why would that be any less important? So let's see if I can show this with you here. So what I'm going to show you is a fruit that many of us recognize. This is a pomegranate. Okay, and the reason why I want to show you this fruit, and I'll explain. The example that you see here in this pomegranate is you see that it has like a surface, what we can use to symbolize the skin, our flesh. You understand? Then you see all the different components inside, which are seeds, but they're also the part that we eat of the fruit. Um, our physical nature is much like this right here. That your body is composed of millions of cells, living organisms that are not you, no more than you would be any of those parts that you see of this pomegranate. You're not the skin, you're not the fruit, okay? But these are things that these are what your existence is manifesting, okay? Everything is like, how can I put it? It's an impression of who you are manifested through this physical aspect that you perceive to be yourself. Okay, so you got to tie the two together because one is not without the other so long as you exist on this planet. In other words, mind, body, and soul are all equally important in your healthy existence on Earth, right? But when you're talking about any one of these three cases by themselves, you're no longer talking about you. When you're just talking about the body, you're not talking about you. When you're talking about the mind, you're not talking about you. You understand? When you're talking about your animative spiritual energy, you're not talking about you. Okay, but you're talking about three manifest tools that you are using, that you are taking on in order to exist in this realm, in this life. Okay, it's important to understand this because then when you start to deal with genetics, you know that, for example, the DNA is composed of, in its the more simplified you get, from its molecules to its atomic particles to its particles, particles, the smallest you can possibly get. All of this is manifesting your impression, you. Okay, going back to evolution, what we're talking about, or what I mentioned earlier, what we have gone through and are still going through as a people will affect our evolutionary development. In other words, the more we um, what our inner being is striving for, not necessarily what you think you're striving for out of the world. You know, I want to be a famous star, I want to be a singer. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the nature that you're striving for, the way your existence is trying to live. Okay, there's an evolution going on that Thus the reason why we exist anyway. Thus the reason why we have generations. Father, mother, children, father, mother, children, father, mother, children, father, mother, children. It's not happening in vain. We're not just reproducing in vain. We're having generations because we're moving towards something. There's something we're trying to get to. And in order to get to it successfully, we have to go through these phases of existence called true evolution, okay, to reach that aim. Where we are today, we didn't always manifest the well, I want to say physical, mental, spiritual credentials that we have today. You understand? The thing is as much as you can evolve, you can also devolve. You understand? You can also devolve. But in our situation, the type of evolution that we had to endure, we needed to, believe it or not, go through the very things we've gone through. All you do this, the transatlantic slave trade, everything. We actually, in order for us to be able to benefit from a future outcome, we had to know about this. And you can't truly know about something without any experience. You know, you won't trust a plumber if he doesn't have any experience. You won't trust a dentist in your mouth without having some type of experience. You want to see that this person is qualified for his task. Okay. So, something out of our ultimate uh, uh, purpose, our true endeavor, our true journey. This is an essential component, an essential ingredient towards what we're trying to evolve to. Um, Another aspect of our being that can affect our evolution are our aspirations, as I'm talking about now, as a collective people, not as an individual. Like I said, this isn't an individualistic thing. This isn't about you. It's not about me. It's about us as a people. That's the part we keep on, you know, bumbling in. We keep on isolating the individual body that you think is you and not realizing that you're a part of a whole collective. When you look at a whole bunch of ants, you don't see you don't make a distinction from each individual ant. They're all ants as far as you're concerned. Even though, yeah, there is a queen ant, there are soldier ants, but when you look at ants from a person's eye view standing up, you see ants. Okay. Even the ants, aren't too concerned about, well, look, I painted a picture today, or I'm a good singer, or I'm this or that. It's all relevant, but it's relevant to the collective more so than the individual. If you are of a talented sort, or of this talent or that talent, this skill, that skill, it should be something that you utilize for the whole collective. It doesn't benefit you to utilize it as an individual. You've got to. Nobody knows that you're an artist if they don't see your work. They can't appreciate it, and therefore you can't get your rewards. Nobody knows what you can do when you become a doctor unless you demonstrate your art, your skills in the field. So it supports the whole. Um, yes, indeed. Ramadan Mubarak, Sister Lorraine. Inshallah, we intend to, our information is given us the beginning phase being on Sunday, tomorrow. We will begin our fasting. So the reports have it. Because they're saying that today the moon has not been sighted. The initiating part of Ramadan is the sighting of the moon, the crescent, and it hadn't been done by the naked eye, according to um, community leaders. So again, as a collective, where our minds are being directed, what we are striving for as a species, and much more, evolution is our species' attempt or effort to reach a specific or certain goal by developing next generational achievements in your nature. So you're not existing in vain. Don't think you're just existing just so you can go to Disneyland. That's not why you exist. There, all of what makes us us in our nature, not in accordance to somebody else's nature. These are the things that are aiding in our journey of evolving to become what it is that we're here for to begin with. More on that. When when you are when you are a spiritually deficient being, that means when your nature isn't inclined to spiritual interests or abstract um observations and whatnot. It's when it's not in your nature. Um, these things aren't going to be your concern. You're not going to be too concerned about spiritual development. Spiritual influence, exercises, meditations, prayers, you name it. All the things that make a person intuitive on a conscious level, inspired on a conscious level. All these things that cause a human being to develop that way. A person that's deficient is not going to be too concerned. They're going to be more concerned about external forms of gratification. External, what I mean is that, okay, they're going to be more concerned about how a thing can serve you. Like what can it do for me? You understand? If I have this, what can it do? Can it serve me in some way? Can I subject it in some way? Can I overpower it in some way? Can I rule it in some way so that it can benefit me and that I can conquer it? This is what happens when you're deficient in spiritual energy, when you're deficient in God consciousness. This is the behavior or the character that comes out of that. Um, on the flip side, yeah. So that type of person, they don't even feel like they're a part of anything unless they have some type of um, conquerable engagement. You understand? Um, um, some type of where uh, they feel like they're just in control. They're but not by nature, but by force, by tyranny. Even, you understand? That's the that's that type of nature. Um, External means. When you are when you are a spirit full full being, it is much different. Rather than wanting to go out, space, for example, imagine, in the case of a spirit less being or spirit deficient person, their method of the idea of entering into the kingdom of heaven is through artificial means. They think that they can. It's been that way for a while. We even find stories about this. People trying to enter into the kingdom of God, if you would, through artificial means, through contraptions, through tower building, through you name it, some means that was not the the proper approach. Okay, a conscious mind, the more they increase in said consciousness, begins to understand the conscious approach to entering into the kingdom, if you would. So that's why, in the case of the spirit full being, much different than the spirit deficient being. Um, so rather than wanting to go out to space, the cosmos, that is, the heavens, the kingdom, you would want to go into it. You would realize that the way to it is into it rather than out. We're not going out into space. We're going into space. You understand? Into space through the door of self. You understand? Um, and then as far as our dealing with others, you understand, other people, we would be wanting to deal with kin, like kind people, ones in sync with that nature, the same. So and then that would be our source of gratification. It would be a spirit full form of gratification, um found within our own being and recognized in the being of one another, in the presence of one another, complementing each other by shared experiences of like kind in sync. I mentioned a story or a little, a similitude with a lion who is raised by a bunch of chickens who captured him one day. And they raised him up and taught him that he was a chicken too, right? In the case of this lion, So long as he believes himself to be a chicken, he will continue to live like a chicken because he thinks he's a chicken. But like I mentioned, even in this story, all the chickens know that he is truly not a chicken. And as much as he tries to behave like a chicken, he will never be accepted as a chicken. No matter what he does, he will never, ever, 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 ever be accepted as a chicken. He can shake hands and be friends. He can, you speak their language. You understand? Do everything he can think of, but he will never be accepted as a chicken. Unfortunately, because he's been misinformed or because he's been programmed to believe that he's a chicken, he continues living like a chicken and trying to partake in the activities of chickenhood and so on. But the moment, the very moment that the lion gets a glimpse of who he is by learning about what his what his story is, meaning the story of his kind, his ancestors, knowing who they are, what they are, will be the very starting point when the lion starts to recognize that he's a lion and not a chicken after all. I'm saying this for vital reasons, family. Um, it's more than just politics that separate us, that make us distinct. You can be a part of the political establishment of your adversary as much as you want, but it's not going to make a difference because you're not a chicken. You're not a chicken. So no matter how you participate, no matter how you associate, no matter how you try to relate with the chickens, you can never be a chicken. The chickens know you're not a chicken. They all know you're not a chicken. They're not confused. You're confused. And no matter what you do, they're never going to accept you as a chicken because they know you're not. In fact, they know that you're a threat to their very existence. The longer, the moment you recognize that you're a lion, they've got to do something about that because you're now a threat to their very existence because lions and chickens, they just don't get along like that. You understand? So these are some base examples that I'm giving you of why it's so important to understand, to really dig into the knowledge of our story. You understand? And learn that knowledge. Try to learn it more so with all of our qualities. We've gained qualities because of being under these. It's strengthened in us our use of our left brain. Okay. But our greater strength had always been our right brain. In other words, let me translate that. We tend to operate on things on an abstract way. You understand? Very, like I said, penetrative, seeing the essence, the nature of things, recognizing the nature of things. You don't need a bunch of libraries per se, and we've had libraries when and where our empires were, but our greatest library, our greater libraries, was our consciousness. And in many cases, that was simply manifested. It wasn't something you compiled in books. You understand? That wasn't something that you needed to um, have an extensive library for. Those are complementary. In other words, you could say that left brain is complementary of right brain and not the rule, so to speak. So again, seeking to understand our nature, not being a Neanderthal, not being from not being from a similar ancestry of white people, you understand? Then you begin to realize that, well, if I'm not this creature of which they descend, one, then what am I? What does that mean? And what is different? Because from where I'm sitting, from what it looks like, we're just the only difference is that our complexion. If our complexion is the only difference, then what's the big deal, right? But then when you recognize the nature of a German Shepherd versus a cat, a short-haired cat, and you know that while they're both a type of creature, they're very different. And the way you behave towards a cat is not the same way you can behave towards a dog, and vice versa. You ever see some of these films of these people who think they've mastered nature, and they're sitting there putting their hands in a snake tank, and the snake just because they got so confident, so cocky about their desire to rule and conquer everything that sometimes they get caught slipping. Now, the more we wake up, you'll begin to realize that they're still caught slipping because while they know we're not them, you understand, their every effort to try to make us them defies or goes against who I'm saying WHO who we are. You understand? And so because of who we are, in addition to what we are, eventually enough of us will come to this awareness, come to this knowledge of self that the when I said they got caught slipping, that the part they didn't realize will start to materialize, will start to manifest. You understand? Remember that ayat in the Quran that says, "I know that which you know not." That will start to manifest. That knowledge, that um the concealed knowledge, if you will, concealed from what prevented uh I've got something going on upstairs. What prevented them from being able to recognize that, look, no matter what you do, let me say it this way: no matter what you do or how hard you try, you cannot defeat God. So, give me a second here. I'm looking here. I had another thing. That's what I thought. Okay. Through the study of our people, not interpreting them in accordance with the standards or lack of standards by white education, we will eventually see the truth about our ancestors in us and live according to the results. Presently, we find many of us upon the way towards doing this, but we have a greater, yet greater still, distance to cover. Okay, so basically, what I'm trying to say through this, and this is why me building on this book when the world was black, and all of these things. This is why I even really enjoyed reading the destruction of black civilization, because these books are compelling us to really dig back into our ancestry. It's not in vain. It's not in vain at all. You understand? Again, this is the knowledge that we get from such an endeavor restores into us a sense of who we are. And the more we begin to manifest who we are, you understand, the more we begin to realize what our purpose is. Why are we here? Why did this happen? How did this happen? You got to understand. You understand? We look, we are a spirit, we are by nature a spiritful people, a spiritful being. You understand? And this deals with the whole things. Our ancestors that knew the science of how to manifest. You understand how to manifest certain things, how to um, exist at certain levels in time. You understand how to enter and exit. Um, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, the example I showed you with the pomegranate fruit. Think of this. if you're what you see that you call your body, it has a similitude with that as in the example, and you remove the skin away because you know that that's not you. So the skin, there's off with the skin. You take all the cells of your body, all your organs, cast them all away. None of that's you either. You begin to remove all these different parts of your body just away. Then where are you? Where are you then? When you look at the night sky, don't you ever find it easier to contemplate at night? Why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose it's easier to tap into spiritual truths or spiritual meditations and at night? And why do you suppose it's easier to become energized during the day? These are just some questions because our ancestors were already on this. This is what they did. That's what so you got to understand who these ancestors of ours were. They weren't Neanderthals. Then who or what were they, and what makes that different from being a Neanderthal? If we're not a Neanderthal, then why do we keep wanting to take on and showing appreciation to the ways of the descendants of Neanderthals? Why do we keep wanting to be them? Why don't we want to dig in and learn of how to be us? And you wonder why we're so confused. You, you wonder why we're so confused. Many of us are so confused because we think that it's one and the same thing. We think that the Neanderthal is no different than the Homo sapien. And there's a big, big, big difference, family. There's a big difference in being something that manifests the presence of God consciously versus something that simply manifests the creative ability of God. One of the things that people of my way that I'm talking about, they say they're Muslims, take issue with when it comes to the people of a Christian. And the thing is the Christians that have this perspective, they're not even wrong. I'm talking about something specific. When you ask them something about Messiah Yeshua, Jesus, they say, well, he had to come in the form of a man in order to experience. Okay, they were close to something there. They were on to something there, but then they were far off to something else that caused them to make exclusively the individual that they call Jesus to be someone to submit to, not realizing that anybody that's ever manifested from amongst our ancestors were simply manifesting what we are. They weren't manifesting a presence for you to say, "Oh, well, that's more than I could do, so that must be who I take as a god over me." This isn't our way. Actually, if you look in the ancestry of Europeans, this is how they treated our ancestors. They thought our ancestors were gods. What made them think that? What made them think that our ancestors were gods? When they were coming out of their caves, scratching the ground, naked and roughed and hairy, what made them, when they looked over the Mediterranean and they saw our peoples, what made them think that they were gods? Why are the children of Israel being told by Yahweh that you are sons, you are children of the Most High? Telling them they're sons of God. Why are these things being said? You have to understand that these are rendering words rendered in English. And often our problems started there. When a lot of our confusion started right there. What are you saying to me in this language? What are you trying to say? Because when we hear this, we're just compelled to be left-brained immediately. The minute I'm talking to us now, and we constantly want to fight. Our mind is constantly fighting from the spirit that I'm talking to you in, which your right brain would be able to tap to instantly. Like, oh yeah, I got you. Yeah, like that. But because of our left-brained programming, our programming to be left inclined, to be linear, we gotta break things down into tidbits and morsels. You understand? Then it makes it harder for us to deal with whatever's being said. And the fact that it even has to be said, or it's necessary to be said rather than understood, makes it even more poses even more of a challenge. You've got to understand why our ancestry is so important. What is it that we carry in us? What was the ultimate reason our ancestors manifested on this planet and lived and made this planet home for millions of years? What were they trying to do? Where are we meant to be going about this? Why when we tap into our ancestral knowledge, we look at things and everything keeps pointing us back to the cosmos. Everything keeps pointing us to specific, not just to the cosmos itself, but specific areas in the cosmos, of the cosmos. Can you imagine us realizing that and waking up to this truth and then taking that voyage, manifesting the true character of our ancestors, being a lion once more, and removing everything that made you a chicken except the experience, because now you have, there's something there that you didn't have before. Learning is what we always want to carry with us. You understand? And you only can take on the learning through experience. But imagine you waking up, going through that phase that you call death, the cousin of sleep, and you wake up and you find yourself not here on this planet, but elsewhere, because that's how you get around. You got here through the mothership just like I did. Oh man, I said too much. The mother, your mother. Understand what was happening there. You were 9 months of development of putting something for you to manifest in while you live on this planet, being carried around in the womb of your mother. It was your father that dropped you off, right? Our Father who art in heaven. So you want to? I'm just saying. Think about these terms, because oh brother, that's just symbolic. Is it? Is it just symbolic, or is our fathers and mothers in heaven? Heaven meaning the cosmos, the celestial realms, outer space, as the Westerners like to call it. They like to call it outer. You understand? Everything for them is outer, external. It's excluding them. It's distant from them. It's not of them. It's outer. It's other than them. Before our ancestors, uh, peace and blessings, sister segment, sister Obo. Welcome. Our ancestors tapped in. Everything was all interconnected inwardly. You understand? All the energies inwardly. You are absorbing the sun's radiance to take it within. You understand? Whatever was out, you were trying to take it in. You understand? Fourth dimension deals with out and in. I'm just saying, family. I'm just saying. These things, look. Just try for an entire day being right brain. The book. I've got the book. I've got the book right here. When the world was black, but the essence of what is going to be said anyway, I'm already there. You're already there. But as long as you keep perceiving yourself, as long as we keep perceiving ourselves as it being favorable to continue behaving like the chickens, then we will never ever get the benefit from a true, heartedly authentic roar of a mighty lion. I'm just saying, family, it's all there. they tell you, our ancestors have told us again and again where they are and how to get to them, and how to manifest what this is of our story. We're not a Neanderthal, so stop trying to take on the traits or the traditions or the behavior of a Neanderthal. You're not a Neanderthal. It's a whole different species of. It looks like this. Like you said, you look at, oh, they're walking, but that came over time. They didn't always look like that. You know, that came over time. Their evolution saw that it was fit for them for their survival. Their survival needed us for them to survive. You understand? If we continue existing like this, they'd say, so to speak, we're going to die. Well, they're still going to die, but because they're trying to avoid the inevitable. Okay, the inevitable is that what is natural to being is what succeeds. What is natural to existence is what's going to have victory ultimately. What is in sync? What is in accord? What is on code? What is in harmony? Okay, you can never claim to be in harmony when even the sun is enraged at your very presence. So much so that you got to take concocted chemicals to protect yourself as best as you can. I'm just saying, these are things that these are no brainers, or if anything, they're right brainers. How about that, right? So it's important to tap back into our nature, our ancestors, so we can restore manifesting, living our lives. I'm saying upon who and what we are. You understand? Shalom, sister, shining light, and I see also, if I didn't say it yet, peace and blessings, brother Gary. So everything matters. Every single molecule that it took to make what you manifest, this temple that you manifest, this abode that you manifest and call your ba, your body. All of these ingredients, all of these things aren't just random. It isn't random that you didn't descend from a Neanderthal. It isn't random that you are melanated by nature. It's not a random thing. What were our ancestors striving for? We needed to have certain degrees of melanin because we're going to be three positions distant from the sun. It makes sense to melanate the population that's going to exist. They're going to be on that planet. We need to make sure they're melanated. Because anytime we've been this far from the sun, we had to make sure we were melanated because that's our nature, our benefit, our source, our energy is going to be benefiting from the radiance, the radiance of the sun. That's how we are nourished. That's how we're nourished. Just like the plants. See how in sync we are with our nature if we tap back, just like everything you see in existence, it's all benefiting from being in accordance with its nature. You don't ever see any frog trying to be like a bee. You understand? You just don't see that. So why do you want to take on the behavior of a chicken? Brother, I ain't a chicken. Well, as long as you try to behave like a Neanderthal, you are. You're not a Neanderthal either, right? So if you're going to say you're not a chicken, then why don't you denounce taking on the behavior of a Neanderthal if you're not one? And if you're not a Neanderthal, then what are you? Because right now, many of us are still behaving in accordance with the way of thinking, the way of behaving. Look at how our sisters treat our brothers treat our sisters. Look at how they treat one another. Look at our way of dealing with our sacred temple, our bodies. I'm talking about. Look at the way we do these things. We behave just like a savage Neanderthal. What do you mean? You mean those who are going to shed blood and spread mischief? Yeah, those. We behave just like them. This is where we got these features from. You don't find them sourced in our ancestry if you do in our story I'm talking about, if you do the knowledge. So, and I'm saying this because many of us we boast about how religious we are or how spiritual we are. And I'm saying, okay, God is one. God consciousness is the awareness of God's oneness manifested in you. So you who say you are gods, you who say you are of God, you who say you are children of God, you who say you are servants of God, but you're broken and divided, while true God is one. So how do you figure? I know my words, might scare some away, because like I said, we've been our misprogramming has taught us to really uh take words, in a certain kind of way, so that I can't even, if I say a certain thing, immediately you're gonna, oh, he must be talking about that. Whatever you're thinking with these words, 9 times out of 10, that's not what I'm talking about. But like I said, I'm just as limited with resources as you are, because many of us that are watching this, we're trying to interpret what we hear through our left brain means. You understand? Rather than simply tap into the spirit of what's being said with right brain means. If we know that we're more inclined to be spiritual than not, more inclined, understand the word spirit, spiritual. If we're more inclined to being like that, then think of what the outcome would be. Like I said, when you look around, everything takes on a spiritual manifestation. The trees mean something. The trees, the birds, they mean something. Everything means something. It's not just animals flapping around in vain. Trees just growing leaves in vain, dropping seeds in vain, water flowing in vain, earth spinning in vain, sun flaming and manifesting in vain. This isn't our way, folks. This is not our way. This is the kind of life you live. You manifest when you're deficient of these type of things. When you're deficient, when see, many types of animals, they're simply out there to survive. They don't care how they get it. They're just trying to survive. But it's not the case for those who manifest for the presence of God. In the case of those who manifest the presence of God, what do you think that the story of the garden, the so-called garden, was talking about? Remember, the garden is Africa. Why be there? What are you doing? Understand the natures of our mind. What happens as a result of our abstract results? What do we do? What happens? What type of eureka experiences manifest from a black mind? Yes, a black mind. Well, brother, minds aren't black, but they are. In this, what I'm talking about, they are, because we're not descendants of Neanderthal. So that's not our mind. Get your chicken mind and take it on somewhere else. But that's not our mind. We've got the mind of a lion. You tricked us and made us believe that we were one of you, that we were whatever you are, so are we. That one of the greatest deceptions is make us not accept who we are, to make us reject who we are, hate who we are, be against who we are. Is more than just skin layer, family. This is the outcome of manifesting who we are. This is what our complexion is part of the divine knowledge, knowing what is needed for our presence on this planet. Conscious knowledge, consciousness, I should say, being aware of what's needed for our presence on this planet, this earth that we've made our home naturally. And so we've remained here for the last million, give or take. Nothing is in vain in existence, which means that our ancestors manifested life here on this planet to get to some objective. They had a game, an end game, so to speak. You cannot grasp the knowledge of that end game as long as you don't, as long as you persist on being what you're not. You understand? A lion can never understand the mighty roar so long as he perceives himself to be a chicken. Living our entire lives, wasting our energy trying to be a chicken, because that's what the chickens keep on trying to program us with. So much so that when we see other lions in their native land, in their natural environment, we look at them as strangers. Some of them look at us as strangers, but not because they don't think we're a lion, but because we are not behaving like a lion. Instead, they find us behaving like a chicken, and to them, that's quite amusing and confusing. Think of how you'd feel if you saw a lion, an actual lion, behaving like a chicken. How would that make you feel? What would you think about your what you would see? It'd be kind of hilarious. It'd be confusing. You'd be scratching your head like, what does Simba think he's doing now? I'm telling you. So when we left off, we were going over just some of the perspectives that many Westerners had of us in when that they would, not that they had of us, but that they taught concerning of us. Like I said, the chickens knew and know who we are. Like I said, they know who we are on all levels. That's why everywhere, when it comes to anything, any form of reverence, when you see them in their most intimate moments, spiritually speaking, or religiously speaking, you find our likeness there. You don't have to take my word for it, family. Just travel around a little bit, do some research, and you'll see our image where it matters most to them. I'm talking about those of them, I should say, that know who we are and know what that means for them and how they should approach the matter. This is why many of them here are petrified, because they know who they are and they know what they've been doing as a collective. See, you have to understand they've got learned ones amongst them. They know that when you deal with a species, you deal with the collective, not the individuals per se, except the anomalies. The anomalies are what stands out. Like, hey, that one's doing something that the whole collective isn't doing. So let's take a look at that one, right? But those amongst them that know, that have even a mustard seed, if you would, of awareness, you see them today trying to cop deuces, trying to be your friend, trying to, be on our side, and trying to, make it like they're standing up for our rights or whatnot, or our equality and all this, that, and the other. Because they don't want to, when the mess hits the fan, they don't want any drama. They don't want any drama at the end of this road on this planet. We're the one. I'm telling you, family. Sometimes you just got to open up your window at night and take a step outside and realize what you are a part of, why you are here, why are you even existing. Look in the mirror and look. Something is looking back at you. That's a reflection of what you've manifested. What is this? Why is it here? I can tell you one thing: it's not for the purpose that these folks are sitting there trying to shove down our necks. This mess that we're in, you understand, has brought us as low as we can possibly be, and yet manifest this form. What have they dropped us down? So what have they taken from us? What have we lost, should I say, at their expense? To understand this, like I said, when you understand their nature is to find ways to benefit off of that which they feel they can control. Okay, every one of our losses has become their benefit. Our land, if they benefit off of our ignorance. Oh, don't worry about Africa. There's nothing over there for you. But some of their most famous resorts are over in Africa. Some of their most good times are over in Africa. The resources of the earth, the healing of the earth in Africa. I'm just saying, family. And we sit here and babble and bicker about this, that, and the other while they take advantage of our resources wherever we go. Over here, they've taken advantage of our ancestry, of those of us whose ancestry ended up here. Our ignorance becomes something that they are able to benefit from. The dumber we are, the sillier we are, the more we try to keep on behaving like a chicken, behaving like them, the more they benefit. Because see, it's the might of the predator. The lion is a predator. You understand? It's the apex. It's the alpha type of creature, right? It keeps everything else in check. Not because it's forcefully doing so, but its nature compels it to be the case. When you're in your rightful position, when you're manifesting the authority of existence, because that's what you started off doing ancestrally, when you manifest it, not because you're compelling or you're a tyrant or this or that, but it's just what you are by nature. The sun can't you can't blame the sun because it burns, but that's what the sun does. You can't blame the sun because, well, man, the closer you get to it, the more hotter things start to get. That's the nature of the sun. I'm sorry, but that's what I am. What do I do? I can't cool down. If I cool down, you see what happened there? What do I do? What's my nature? I catch things on fire. You understand? I make things. I shed light on the situation. So what do I do? I'm the sun. What do I do? I'm just saying. You can't. I mean, that's our mindset. That the minute we start manifesting our nature, the ignorant ones, the ignoramuses amongst us, are quick to catch offense. We're not behaving like chickens like they've been behaving all along. Who does he think he is? Oh, you think you somebody. Well, let's see you roar then, if you're a lion. Let's see you roar. Let's see you do something that lions do then. Because they've been so chickened up, so spooked up, you understand? That, like I said, they've convinced themselves they must be a chicken and it's a better life being a chicken to get along with the chickens. They leave you alone. They don't cause you any problem, any drama. Look, man, this life is all about drama when it comes. As long as those who shed mischief and those who spread mischief and shed blood exist, there will always be drama everywhere, anywhere they go. Is no way to avoid that except that the divine laws manifest, which will eradicate them eventually. It's the nature because this is not habitable for them. This abode is not habitable for them. And as much as they want to corrupt it, it will never be made habitable for them. And there's no other place they can go. All the little artificial means, the trip to Mars, cancel the tickets. Don't buy into that. You can't go where you don't have the nature to manifest and where you don't even belong. You can't go there. You're trapped here. Sorry. Anyway, it's heavy, family. That's why I mean, as much as I'm trying to you know dig into the textual aspect of this, but the nature in us wants us to tap into the right brain aspects of this. It's a challenge. It's a challenge being left brain. This isn't easy to do when you're trying to do it willingly. You understand the difference? When we've been forced into this left brain mentality for a long time, but when you're trying to do it willingly for like this live conversation, I've got to willingly be left brained to do this. But every time I tap into, just when my eyes see, you understand, greater conclusions, greater observations, greater understanding, or just greater, it wants to dab into it and talk about it and build on it with the family. Our nature. And so now think about what they are saying when they say if you want to keep something from the Negro, put it in a book. But there's a flip side to that. It's not that they're going to conceal something from you because it's in a book, but you'll be like the monkey. See, this this is what I mean. What I mean by being right brain. Check this out. I don't know if you've ever seen this video. I don't know if I can find it somewhere, but there's a video where this monkey. They want to capture a monkey. They want to catch him, and in order to catch this monkey, they've got to put these nuts or whatever inside of this hole in like a rock or something, just like a rock or the side of a hill or something. They put the seeds or the food that the monkey likes into the hole. And the monkey's been watching all this all along. He's been seeing them put it in there. He's been watching every tactic. Like, oh, so you, you got some goodies in there. I've been watching. Let me just keep quiet because they don't even know I'm here, right? We know you're here. They know that we're here. The monkey just convinced himself that they don't know, so he's going to keep quiet. Soon as they leave, monkey makes sure the coast is clear. He goes to that hole, puts his hand in there, his paw, whatever, and tries to grab the seeds. And his hand comes like this. So now he wants to take his seed out of this little hole that his hand was able to fit in when it didn't have the seeds. And he can't. And because he's so ignorant, he doesn't want to let the goods go in order to save his life. He doesn't want to let it go. And so here comes the catchers, ready to bag and tag him and take him off to whatever they're going to do with him. Understand that. So sometimes the reason for keeping something in a certain way is not always for what you think. Yeah, put it in a book and we can catch choice Negroes. Because when they get into these books, there's going to be some candy in there mixed with some of the dust. And once they grab a hold of that candy, they're not going to want to let it go. And we can catch those. We can catch them. They've now they've now they've now exposed themselves from hiding. So we can go ahead and catch them. But the thing that's the nature of being greedy. You know, a more thorough way, especially when your life is at stake, we take what we need and go. Take it what you need and go. In many ways, this is our ancestral way. They were very frugal, very what do you want to call it? They knew how to um, make do with certain things in their environment and make something better out of little. They knew how to improvise. They knew how to do all kinds of stuff like that. But many of us were like those little monkeys. We get our hands into something that they've strategically placed or put in place, and we don't want to let go. Right now, there's about to be a Supreme Court judge. Little bits of candy. Let's put it in this hole. We need their votes this November. They're real suspicious of us now because of the things that have been going down. We've been showing our tail lately. They say this is I'm saying that they've been showing their tail lately. So we need these Negroes to vote for us November. How are we going to get their confidence back up? Well, uh, I thought we had a female vice president. Well, she's not entirely black, so they got hip to that real quick. She's been favoring her Hindu side of the family more, so much so that she will basically hang the nigga. You understand? So we can't, they didn't buy into that too much. So we've got to figure something else out, Uh, and she didn't have all the authentic qualities that they would look for. So let's get a sister, another sister. This is going to be the Supreme Court judge of the United States, one of the judges of the United States, and make her authentic. Not light skin anymore. Like we did with the president and the vice president. Let's make her, get an authentic, thorough sister. You understand? The hair, natural hair, everything. Go get her up on the seat. Maybe they'll believe us this time because they'll want to hold on to those nuts. They want to hold on and they don't want to let go. And we'll keep them captured for some more time so we can keep on ruling over them, keep on, being their masters. And oh, they were so close this time. They were so close. They were at the brink of revolution. They were at the brink of revolution, suiting and booting and everything, marching, armed in the streets. They were that close. All it took for that was to hem up their leaders, silence their leaders, put their leaders away. They fell off right and left. They don't because they don't understand how organization works. They don't understand that certain things take time to develop, but you still remain loyal to the cause and loyal to the people who stand up, and you still continue supporting the way. You understand? You still keep on operating on code. But they didn't understand that. So all we need to do is we got this year. They're going to vote for us again. They're going to vote. They're going to vote for us. We're going to keep them running the Senate. We're going to keep them running the Supreme Court judge seats and everything because we just got to dangle something they like. They haven't woke up yet. They're not woke. They still think they're chickens. So family, so supreme knowledge is talking about the history of savagery. At the title of it, at the title portion of this chapter, he's citing a quote from Mark Twain. Excuse me. Then are many humorous. Oh, I'm sorry. The letters are small. There are many humorous things in the world. Among them, the white man's notion he he's less savage than other savages. Okay. So Supreme Knowledge is talking about. He says then when my wife Mecca and I traveled to the city of Prague, which is in Europe, I believe. I can't remember. Um, yeah, it's like what was that? Czechoslovakia or something. Um, we wandered around as if we were on a foreign planet. No one spoke English, and we didn't speak their language or anything close to it. They clearly hadn't seen too many couples like us either. In other words, they hadn't seen black folks before. Perhaps that's why Kenya West had such a hard time casting black children for his Diamonds from Sierra Leone video, which was shot there before we made our trip. We documented some of our experience there in a video found on my YouTube channel. He does have a YouTube channel, so might want to check it out. Um, Supreme Knowledge, that's his name. One of the highlights of this video is our trip to Prague's Torture Museum. Yes, it's a museum dedicated entirely to torture devices and the history of their uses. They had giant metal spikes that women were forced to sit on, and caskets filled with barbed points that were closed on living people. These devices were used throughout European history, but we recognized a few of them from the history of American slavery as well. It was disturbing to say the least. Oh man, my eye. hmm There we go. But as it turns out, there are torture museums throughout the Western world. Most of them just like the one in Prague. Guess why? Because torture. Listen to this. Torture is one of the few things that Europeans gave to the world. In other words, you're not likely to find torturous artifacts from the other peoples upon. Doesn't mean that nobody's ever tortured anybody, but the habit or the this being something we do, it just wasn't what people did. It wasn't what our ancestors did. This was something unique. Listen carefully, unique. Like it says, these are divine words telling you this one will spread mischief and shed blood. It will be what they do. This is what they do. They're saying. Nobody. It's not a lie. Is it a lie? Is this not historical findings? Is it by random chance that all of the majority of the torturous objects are found in European countries? Don't get mad at me because you got museums full of your ancestors' torturous artifacts, and sometimes not even your ancestors, but yours. Don't get mad at me because you want to torture people and spread mischief and murder people in cold blood. Don't get mad at me because you don't see why that is contrary to a harmonious existence, that you shed other people's blood when you don't get your way, when you can't conquer them, when you can't rule over them, so you got to shed their blood. Don't get mad at me. That's what you do. So, as we'll explore in the separate books titled Black People Invented Everything, I remember that book as well. We might be able to come across that book at some point in one of these lives. Um, all these things came from original people. And understand, when they talk about original people, they're talking about our ancestors. And it's not, again, this is some random loose use of words. Okay, these are actual facts, even genetically speaking. But when it comes to torture, genocide, child molestation, bestiality, and all sorts of human degradation, we know that those things weren't a part of any indigenous culture, of any in capital letters indigenous culture. As the scholars Profiled in Tariq Nasheed's Hidden Colors 2 documentary, explained there are no known instances of African cannibalism. Listen to that. I'm going to say that again. There are no known instances of African cannibalism, yet there are dozens of well documented cases of European cannibalism throughout the ages. And just how civilized are a people who go around enslaving and raping everyone they meet? What makes a people civilized? He asked. Then he goes on, captioning or titling the next portion. So, who were the real savages? Who were the real savages? He asked. As we explained in the Hood Health Handbook, Volume 1, he quotes, this is a book, another of his writings, he's quoting from. Historically, original people have always been very big on being clean. We were the ones who invented soap, bathhouses, and even shampoo, all before anyone ever thought to say cleanliness is next to godliness. We've included hygiene in all of our religious and cultural traditions. Meanwhile, Europeans were historically pretty gross. From living in caves sealed with feces to, I mean, literally, they literally would build their caves with uh, excrement as part of the structure of it. They would build the interior and whatnot with excrement. To bathing only once or twice a year. Yes, a year. When we came to Europe as the Moors, we had to teach them how to bathe. If you saw Robin Hood when it first came out, you'll notice that the Moorish brother is the one who has to teach Robin Hood and then to wash up and them to wash up. Um, there's a little portion here. Did you know the most popular examples of flushing toilets in the ancient world are those built by black people in ancient India? But there's also plenty of evidence from ancient Africa as well as the Mayans and other original people, including ancient Egyptians and Minoans. Here's the thing, family, that we're going to constantly see as we deal with, you know, our story. And one of the things that's being talked about here is just the fact that we were what is meant to be civilized. Today, the concept of being civilized is cast upon Western white people who've hijacked much of our knowledge, you understand, much of our learning, and they implement it a certain kind of way. And so we interpret them as being civilized because of that. But the main reason why we call them civilized is because of their tyranny, not because it's like this. If we were led to our own devices, we'd call them out for who they are. You know, and when I'm saying call out, we wouldn't just say it. It would be enforced. This is why time and time again we tell you that it's impossible for a black man or a black woman to be racist because we have no authority to impose that any views that we might hold. You understand? The moment we do, run for the hills, right? No, because we're not like you. So you may not need to run for the hills, but you just may need to just leave us the heck alone for a good while because we've had enough of your deception. And the moment we reach any kind of authority like that, it means that one, like I said, we've had enough of your deception. We don't trust even your nice side right now. And it's going to take a long time for us to get to the point where we can say, okay, well, here they're existing. We can coexist with them, but at a distance. And never again. You can guarantee, I could guarantee you the moment we restore power amongst ourselves or any sense of real true authority, divinely backed, you will likely never be able to rule again on any planet. That's just, you know, when you're understanding the nature of something, and if anything, I mean, you can consider that, okay, our knowledgeable would say, hey, well, they do have some benefit. There are certain things that they are more qualified to doing, but leadership will never be one of them. And that's the story that you'll find ancestrally. Leadership will never be, it'll never be one of willful leadership. I'm not talking about tyranny. You understand there's a difference. The only reason why you're able to do what you're able to do now as a white people is because you're in a position of leadership manifesting tyranny. You understand? If this was truly a democracy here, you would have been off your seat a long time ago by your own people, not even us. You would have been off. You would have been kicked off by your own folks, let alone anyone else in the world. But the world would have immediately like, no, we are not voting for you. You don't have there's no bombs. You're not threatening us with any bombs, guns or anything. Okay, burn it up because you're not qualified for this position. Like I told you before, like I said before, if you truly want to redeem yourself, you truly want to uh, a better outcome for your situation, all white authorities should step down. They should step down from ruling, unless they're ruling strictly their own people. But you should step down from ruling any other population of people that aren't your own, if that. Because you've shown the world time and time and time again that you're incompetent with treating people justly, that you're incompetent with um, respecting um, other people and other cultures and not only that, but appreciating their output. We've been in this land for 400 years. Our ancestors have put much output when it comes to what's built this country. And you have yet to truly show their descendants any meaningful appreciation. And yet you've benefited again and again and again, which are clear evidences that you have no interest in any type of harmonious existence, in any type of uh, you have no interest in being righteous. So shame on you that you could do all these things and why you go to your places and your temples and churches acting like you're righteous. Because you've convinced your own self that what you're doing is is what's best for meeting your ends. Self-deception. But again, I'm an optimistic person. It's not a lost cause, but it's the type of cause that you may not be too willing to take the sacrifices for, because it means you've got to lose something. You've got to lose the things you cherish most if you want to be taken seriously ever again on this planet. If you really want your existence, your kinfolk to be preserved, you have to step down from any position of authority over any other population of people that's not you. Otherwise, you're making it very plain and clear that you prefer being a tyrant, that you prefer being a community, a people of wickedness, and that you are those of which the Quran speaks of, and many other books speak of, whose presence is to spread mischief and shed blood, because this is prominently a feature of you. So he's talking about continuing to quote his book, talking about the subtitle. So who were the real savages? So he's continuing. He says we also had to teach them, meaning our ancestors had to teach the Europeans about about sanitation. We came from civilizations that had sewers and flushing toilets as early as 3,500 BC, but as late as the 1800s, Europeans used chamber pots, which they poured out the window when they were done. Now imagine what's in the streets. But a lot of that was cleaned up by the huge rats and pigs they had running through the streets of Europe at the same time. You can imagine the health complications. When Europeans came to North America, they brought a gang of disease, most of which came from animals, as well as their standards of hygiene. Feeney Zenner, who wrote a biography of Tisquantum, better known as Squanto, recorded that Squanto, quote, tried without success to teach them the pilgrims to bathe. The native people of Mexico would hold flowers to their noses when talking with the Spanish conquistadors in an attempt to mask the odor they could smell through the armor of the Spanish. Hmm. In fact, Queen Isabella of Spain, who once boasted that she had bathed only twice in her life, the first time when she was born and the second time the day of her marriage, upon hearing uh, Columbus's reports on the frequency of bathing among the native people, issued an edict that stated in part they are not to bathe as frequently as hitherto. Everywhere you look among people of color, we have washed regularly, put fruits and berries in our hair and skin. Remember, quote unquote, Coming to America, the movie, and kept up the highest standards of hygiene. And even when our homes were built from clay and straw, they were impeccably clean. And I can remember, some of the more traditional people that I came across when I was in East Africa. You know, the material that some of the houses were made were, they weren't always the best material, but they treated their homes with utmost respect. I'm talking about some of the lower end, the so-called quote unquote lower end of society, you know, versus the people who lived in the inner city. Okay, doesn't I don't see those people as lower end in any kind of way. But I just noticed how even some of the more not wealthy uh, families were still they were on point when it came to these type of things. When it came to like their hygienic etiquettes and stuff like that. Don't let those ancient ruins fool you. You gotta see a mock-up of how they looked before they became ruins. Or visit a tribal village today. And that's what I'm talking about. Don't believe the hype, family. I'm telling you, when you see these little shows or these commercials trying to depict, a suffering, impoverished Africa, it's a bunch of nonsense. Now, there are poor people in places, but most of those poor people are in places because their country has been subjected to indirect rule and sometimes direct rule by Western countries. So yeah, those little huts get swept daily. In fact, we invented the broom too, and you would see them just they get the broom out and they get the little this cloth or whatever. The floor will be polished. So what happened to us? He's asking the same question. It's the same question I talk about all the time. What happened to us? That's why you have three type. Yeah, yeah. What happened to us? He asked. What happened to us? Simple. We fell victim, or as I would put it, we accepted being chickens instead of lions. Poverty and oppression changed our cultures drastically. Many of us are in plain survival mode, while others are just trying because we've lowered our standards for ourselves or each other. Okay, so he ended up quoting his book. Then he continues to talk about, he says, we can actually compare photos and sketches of indigenous cultures from the 1800s and 1900s, illustrating the gradual change that occurred among people like the Fuegians of South America. The oldest accounts of the Fuegians describe them as a respectable people who often intimidated Europeans with their strength, endurance, commitment to the protection of their women, and high moral standards. Some of these people were so revered they became the subject of myth and mystery. Yet, less than 100 years later, photos reveal the Fuegians in a state of morbid despair. Their hair is unkempt, their faces dirty, their look broken. Who broke them? They'd been living in this area for thousands of years, and they were just fine until, well, So when we look at the so-called primitive people throughout the world, and this is something you really need to listen to what he's saying here. Keep in mind that These people are often the direct descendants of the original people who actually built the country's first civilizations. These lawless, quote unquote, lawless people were once the society's lawgivers. They've been marginalized, vilified, and forced to live on the fringes, surviving in the forests and mountains of the lands where they once built thriving ancient civilizations. This is just one of the many reasons we may have the wrong idea about who is the savage and who is civilized. Another issue is our lack of consensus about what civilization means to begin with. Very important to listen to that part. You know, today, when you see many of us in the way we are, you understand? Um, Even here in the States, when you see some of us, out there strung out, you can see them strung out on dope and drugs. Our people were not always like this. They weren't like this. These what you see anywhere we are where we're at our lowest ultimately has been at the outcome of a corrupt established ruler. A corrupt established ruler. You understand? And the evidence is the fact that we have lived much better than this prior to them showing up. You've got stories in certain countries in Africa where they had a thorough governing system before the Portuguese got involved. And in fact, when the Portuguese got involved, one of the things they wanted to try to do is they brought in their missionaries and whatnot. That's some of the things they like to do is they bring in their missionaries to try to soften you up a bit. Because then if they can soften you up, then it's a lot easier to divide you and conquer you. But we saw what happened to those missionaries who came in upon that island of brothers and sisters. They weren't having it. They knew what that is. They knew what that is. They said, well, here, take this arrow. You want to bring Jesus here? Well, here's it. I'm gonna bring an arrow to you. Shot them down, and the Western world was infuriated that hey, you can't do that. They were just trying to bring the message of Jesus. Oh man, I'm telling you, family. That's why I mean, I used to wonder that as a child growing up when I'd see like the like images of like the ancient Mayan civilization, and I'm like, well, what happened to the Mayans that were living there? Where did they go? And you could tell that at one time that had to have been a glorious city. You understand? What you see today isn't the image that they would have seen in their time. You're seeing, I mean, you know how things get. If you leave a house, even a house in a hood, if you leave it uh, uh, abandoned long enough, it's going to end up looking like crap. You understand? That's just things over time. They decay, they break down. You know, that's not how it is. How it was when it was brand new, fresh. Just the stones were just carved. The carvings were just there when it was in a position to serve the purpose that it was that it was intended. You can only imagine that a great people had once lived there, and then what happened to those great people because they didn't die. They had descendants, they had children. Where did they go? Well, I can tell you, many of them they've been enslaved. Many of them have Spanish has been forced down their necks. So much so they don't even speak their own tongue anymore, so that you don't even recognize that. Hey, these were the descendants of some of those great ancient civilized civilization structures. It's in a way it's terrifying when you see what we've gone through. When you realize that literally whole nations of our people had been annihilated. Whole nations like the nations that you see today is not all the nations of our people who've existed on the face of this earth that were annihilated. You know what I'm saying? Murdered, massacred, genocide, taking them all out. That means you take out the whole, any man, woman, and child. They all are murdered, and they move on. And sometimes these nations would end up being people that just don't fight. They were very peaceful, and they'd been living peaceful for thousands and thousands of years, not fighting anybody. Other tribes would respect them. Like, oh, don't even beef with them. They don't even fight. They don't even do that. They ain't on that. But when these folks came over here kicking in the doors and whatnot, they didn't care about none of that. That was an easy meal for them. Massacred these people and kept it moving off to the next, off to the next. Think about what what it takes to have that kind of mindset. And don't tell me, well, Africans had slaves too. No, I'm sorry, but they had servants. You understand? They had servants. In many cases, the servants they had the servants. They ended up having the servants because work was there was certain rent due or some bills had to be paid, and you don't have the money to pay this bill. You've taken my services and you don't have no way to pay. Okay, well you can clean the dishes for a little while. Not only that, but I've seen where um you have some people who are on a more impoverished level. They would end up being secured in someone's home for their services. Just make sure everything's cleaned up, and they live there willingly. It was by choice. You understand? That's servitude. It wasn't this mess that these people have implemented. It's not that. Look, when these people were in servitude, they were still their own people. They had their identity, they had their language, they had their culture. Whatever they had, whatever they were about, they were still about that. These people, not only did they enslave, but they stripped us of our culture, our identity, our names, our ways of life, um, our language, you name it. raped uh, Raped our people, what I'm saying, molested our people, corrupted our people, deceived our people. That's You cannot compare that with whatever was going on in Africa during that time. So, so stop with your nonsense because there's no way you can compare the type of scenarios. They didn't happen that way. Yeah. So for those coming in or seeing or watching, we're commenting on When the World Was Black by Supreme Knowledge. I encourage you to, if you know, find that you appreciate what's going on here, I'm going to encourage you to show your support right up here, up there. What is it there? Yeah, up there. You see the Cash App, and show your support to the Cash App. Much appreciated. And also, I would encourage you if you haven't subscribed to Soul Journey of Life, the Conscious Black social media platform, to go to souljourneyoflife.org. As you see scrolling at the bottom there, go to Soul Journey of Life and set up your account and build break bread there. In case you don't know, it seems like there are a significant number of people who are still trying to understand how the platform works. I do intend to go over that at another session, but suffice it to say here that a lot of the elements that you would expect off of a social media platform and more can be done there. You're posting, you're sharing, posting pictures, videos, YouTube links, all that. It can all be done there. You know, the hope would be, or the idea would be, to bring your community on board of Soul Journey of Life as a platform for our own social media benefits, leaving alone a people who don't understand who we are, who don't want us to understand who we are. Let me say it that way. Who don't want us to understand who we are. You understand? So the minute we start speaking our way, speaking our language, they catch offense. The minute we start talking our truth, they catch offense and want to censor and block and whatnot. Come to Soul Journey of Life.org. What is civilization anyway? He asked. The backwards model. In school, you may have been taught that the developments we associate with modern civilization were improvements over the older models of human society. In other words, that what you have today is the evolved, the best version. Like everything else was prehistoric or outdated or something in some way, and this is better than those. That is, we got better or became more advanced over time. We're taught that crude primitive society evolved into modern society, which really just means Western society. The point of this curriculum was to ingrain, program that is, in your mind that the apex or height of all civilization was modern Europe and by extension America. I believe I pointed this very thing out when I had a live talking about, the live is titled "We Are Not the Same." Go and check out that video, that live, and I break down why we're not the same, and hopefully in plain terms. But one of the things that these people try to drive into our domes is that they are the best that evolution has to offer. Everything was, you know, evolving to become them. All along, it was all about becoming them, the height of humanity, the height of civilization. Everything, their very presence is excellence. When you look at the certain terms used, it's here's a pure white sheet of paper, pure pure white. And when they use black, you don't say pure black. You might say jet black, ebony black, dark black, something like that, but not pure black. That's not what they say. Pure. So what is pure? It means clean, without blemish, without stain. That's so constantly trying to affix to themselves the notion of perfection. Basically, the ultimate goal of all historical development was to produce quote unquote sophisticated Western culture, which is interesting because how could Western civilization describe such distant places as Britain, America, and Australia? Easy. It's because Western means white and primitive means everyone else. They're basically saying that anytime they say Western, they mean white people. Anytime they say primitive, they mean anyone else that's not white people. Here is a citation he's quoting. Unless one chooses to live in a state of unconsciousness and alienation, one cannot live without memory or with a memory that belongs to someone else. And history is the memory of nations. And thus we come to the formidable question of methodology. That's a quote from African historian Joseph Key Zerbo. That's that's exactly one of the things that we suffer in our time now. We don't truly have our own memory. We have Western or white memory. We think white. We don't think as a as our people, our story. We think like them. You understand? This has been the result of our programming or misinformation. This has been the result of constant, I mean, literally, our mind has been whitewashed. And so thoroughly that among the people who would become offended by me even saying that wouldn't be white folks. It'd be other black folks that would find offense at me saying those lines right there. They'd be the first and foremost, well, brother, how can you say, well, brother, they'd be the first to be offended by anything that they would perceive as defaming or blemishing their white masters. You understand? Because you know they think that they're them. They're one of them. Okay. So this way of teaching history is really a platform for advancing the standards of Western civilization over the modes of living that have worked everywhere else in the world for hundreds of thousands of years. Think about that. Think about that when the invasion of Iraq and whatnot took place. People had been living there, practicing their way. For same with Afghanistan. People have been living there, practicing their way for a long, long time. For you to come along and say, "Well, you're not practicing our democracy, or this that and the other. Your system of ruling is outdated. That's what they'll try to say. Well, you guys are trying to live in the what did it say, the 14th century or whatever it was. You guys are, so what are they are? What if they are trying to live with the four? That's what's worked for them for the last thousands of years. They're not interested in whatever you're knocking on their door with. So take your message on to the next house. Anyway, and the implication is that, excuse me, the implication is that the indigenous cultures that came before the Western world's rise to dominance and, quote, failed to receive the bounties of Western influence are primitive and backwater. So, in a nutshell, history history class taught you that you are the descendants of savages, and white people are were the teachers of all humanity. But if we critically re-examine the historical record, we know this timeline is more backwards than the movie Memento. I call it the backwards model of history because it starts with whatever white people are doing now and takes for granted that those are best practices. Then it works backwards to show how those things came to be. Okay. All right, family. I'm thinking here. Let's take a moment to. We've got a lot of healing to do. We've got a lot of healing to do. Seriously, because the more and more you think, the more you realize how damaged we we are. You understand? We are. Whew, how much we've lost. Not just the suffering. I'm talking about the loss. It's not the same type of thing of when you're attached to material things and you complain about losing that. These aren't that. We've lost viable understandings of our own nature. We've lost the knowledge of it. We've been hindered from the knowledge of it. I say hindered because I'm one of those that believes that by default you have um, instructions included. You understand? Um, so that no matter what, we are all if 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 we're allowed to truly manifest ourselves unhindered, the truth will always be the case. You understand? That comes out, and we'll be able to to succeed. But take for example, um, when you compare the results of homeschooling your children versus when they're sent off to public and then they come home whatever was there. Think of the results of when you keep your blood of your children pure from the contaminants of so-called vaccines. You understand? And they grow up strong and healthy. Then you have to ask yourself, if the children are strong and healthy, what lies have they been teaching? What lies have they been shoving down our necks throughout these years? On and on. You start to really re-examine everything that they come with, even things that are actually true. You re-examine. Well, they're telling me the truth in this situation, but why? What's their agenda of telling me the truth now? Think about it. Think about even these ones I come across on like IG or whatnot, who are telling black people true things about us and true things about what we've gone through, this and that. I'm asking myself, okay, fine that you're saying this. Yeah, it's true, blah, blah, blah. But why are you telling me this? Why are you the one posting this thing about why did you feel compelled to get up this morning to get on IG or YouTube or whatever to tell black people that something honorable about our history or something? Why did you feel compelled to do that? Goes in deep, family. Goes in very deep. Yeah, sometimes you just have to. I mean, I don't want to say it's not really. It's not overwhelming in a sense. It can be overwhelming, but sometimes you just have to sit and reflect upon everything that you say, everything that you see in your thoughts, because it ends up, like I said, it just ends up being a lot, and it ends up being heavy to carry. You know, sometimes you can have thoughts heavier than the heaviest weights weighing you down. You say, "Well, what's wrong, brother? What's wrong, sister?" Oh, they got some heavy thoughts on their chest. Heavy, heavy, heavy thoughts, family. To know all that we've been through. But the thing is, our problem, one of our problems amongst the conscious community, I'm talking about when I'm saying conscious community, by the way, those who see what's going on, who are paying close attention to they to what it means to be a unified people, things of that nature. But still, for some reason, we're still short of manifesting who we are as a collective. As a collective. Think about it. Think. Let me say it this way. Maybe this will can drive it in a little bit. If our divine supreme designer, I'm using English words here, so bear with me. You may have a different word, different vocabulary for the same thing. But like I said, each of us we've had different outcomes of how we've been brought up. So I'm going to use these words because my objective is to be selfless and not selfish. If I use my words and people will say, "Oh, brother, well, that everybody doesn't believe that way or think that way." So I often find myself when I'm speaking on like in a public element like this, thinking of words that are neutral to all involved, that everybody can accept in a very neutral way. It doesn't favor this group or that group because even if we want unity, we still got so many things that cause us to be divided in our mind when it comes to one another. Anyway, we have a what I want to say, like, give me a moment here, recollect my thoughts. Okay, think of the way we manifest as melanated people. Clear communication that the supreme being, the supreme designer, knew what would be essential for our presence on this planet. They're going to need to be melanated people to live there in harmony, excuse me, with their existence. They have to be melanated. One, because it's just the nature of the way um, this aspect of existence works. You understand? As a planetary being. So what that's saying is that the wisdom that the supreme being, supreme designer possesses enough wisdom to know what's essential for your existence. What will make this journey successful for you. Why am I saying this? If there's enough wisdom to know that our our existence will be more blissful or more harmonious if our nature is melanated, then what about our predicaments? What about the predicaments we find ourselves in? Um, do you think that we would also, because this our melanated qualities, this is innate. We don't have to buy it from a store somewhere in a bottle, right? It's what is what we are manifesting. melanated peoples. So if we can have these qualities about us, even on a physical level, then what do you and this is so that we can survive and be um, successful at it. Then what about the other aspects of which of things that we endure in our life? You'd have to think that there also should be natural aspects of our existence that can deal with that as well. But all these are functions that it's kind of like having a car and you don't even know what any of the buttons do. You understand? It's a nice car and it'll take you places, but if you don't know what anything does, you're not going to get too far. You understand? That's kind of what we're going through. We've got this nice shiny car, this nice bronzen colored car, but we don't even know what the buttons do. I'm just saying that's our predicament right now. Being a black people and not even knowing what that means. Just that we say it sounds cool. I'm black and proud. I hear you, but do you know what that means? What does it mean? What do you mean? What makes that different than anything else? Well, I'm melanated. Okay. Well, what do you do with that? What next? What happens next? You're melanated. Fine. Applaud. You want a cookie. What do you do? What makes you distinct from that which does not have any of this? That which does not qualify for what it is that you are? Car, but you don't understand how it operates. And so what I'm saying here is that the same master of being, of manifesting, knew or had the wisdom for the nature and the design that this is. So if it's able to do things such as fend off harmful rays from the sun, that it has to be on a planet that's getting these rays. And it's just amongst other things. I mean, it's able to absorb energies and convert them into useful means, as we've talked about in another live. All these things we find are the qualities of melanation, right? Wouldn't it make sense that also and that's of a drama. I'm talking about the being able to have enough of what we have to protect us from the harmful radiations of the sun. That's a big deal. So if we can have enough qualities about us that is protecting us from the harmful radiations of the sun, what about things more on ground level, such as beastly creatures? Is there anything about us that's capable of fending beastly creatures off from harming us or annihilating us as a people? I think there is. You understand? I think there is. I'm using the word think with emphasis, by the way. I think there is. Okay. So I gotta lay down, cause man, yes indeed. Peace and blessings, shining light. Time to get your rest. And so, I'm just putting these thoughts out there. We're winding down to the conclusion of this particular live. Um, we're still in the beginning portions of when the world was black, so we've got quite a lot to cover. So there's plenty of other episodes in which we can build on this. Um, this is what happens. These are we are when we do this, we trigger thought in each other. We start to remember. We start to be reminded. You understand um, of who and what we are and what that means. What do we do with it now? Now that you know, what do you do next? What do you do? Because after all, we're not inanimate objects. We're animate objects, which means we're we do stuff. We're active. We should be active in doing. Um, yeah. So I think that's a good point. When we continue the next time to build on this book, we're going to be going where the subtitle says the original model. the original model. It's interesting that he uses model, just kind of like I was using a car as an example. Um, we'll build on that in our next inshallah in our next live, and I think that'll be a good pausing point. But what will make this any of this important is that our children are the major benefactors of any of this. You understand? Because we're learning, but the problem is, the what we're striving for is going to take more time than our earthly life allows us, which means that in so many ways, the benefactors are going to be our descendants and not our immediate generation right here and now. Okay, which means that it's heavily important to to prepare our children to be able to accept, to be able to benefit off of learning knowledge of our legacy. You understand? So that way they don't have to cover as much ground. It's already known, it's already understood. They can now take it on to the next level and keep on progressing forward. Um, it's very important. You understand? It's very important that our youth, our children are constantly um properly educated, properly taught, and that we do as much as we can to protect them from the infectious diseases of the mind that our adversary constantly wants to put out there and inject in our mental development. We got to protect ourselves from these infections because they're very infectious and they spread like wildfire. Okay, so with that said, I think we've reached a good point that I can either do one of two things. I think I have the invite link, and I'll put it back there again. Here's the invite link. So that if you have any comments you'd like to add, or words to share, or disagreements even that you can present respectfully, you understand that, then there's the link. I remember we had one guy somebody who put a commentary of a disagreement, which I don't have no problem with. You can say what you want as long as it's respectful. And and and, and I always say, if it's something that your youth can't hear, then you should probably not say it. If they're, if, I'm talking about like choice of words, if it's something that you would say, well, children shouldn't hear those kind of words. Well, neither, I'm not interested in hearing them either. You know. Um. So there, that is. Also, I want to give you a heads up because we're doing a good job. I've been doing a little bit of collaboration with brother Bossman Blake on the music tip. So real good work coming out of it. So I'm definitely going to encourage you guys to stay tuned for some upcoming joints from your brother Questman. Um, I'm gonna try to hang around for just a little bit longer in case anybody would entertain that invite link, but not too much longer because we do have a life, and other obligations and things of that nature. Let's see here. All right. Yes, indeed. I'm just reviewing some of the comments in case there's anything that I might have missed, which I don't see anything that I missed, so that's good. A lot of different conversations, and of course, some things people don't let go in the mainstream media. There's just a lot of different talks going on. You know, they're talking about Will and Jada and Chris and all that. That's a hot topic. I've said what I had to say about it. I don't need to say anything more. Um, like I said, I think we need to focus on when it comes to our people, our honorable uh, e- endeavors. You know, we need to keep the the misbehaving or the exposing of misbehavior amongst ourselves. It's nobody else's business, and it's definitely not something for this public arena. Um, I mean, notwithstanding you're dealing with celebrities and whatnot, but all the same, we're dealing with our people. Let's see, there's there's a study talking about why study genetics. Why study genetics? It says. Let's read that little article. And this, if anything, what you're going to get out of this is a left-brained explanation. But the thing that I would challenge you to do is while you're hearing this, to see this in a right-brained way, and how and see it as, and try to see what is relevant to us. Hearing anytime you hear knowledge, anytime you hear advice, Western advice or whatnot, we've got to we've got to start learning how to translate whatever we see and hear through right brain. Retranslate it, retranslate it. And then sometimes you end up finding out the shenanigan in the situation. Just like I also give you an example when you're seeing these YouTube posts and IG posts about people speaking positively, speaking about our suffering and things like that, and how we're the chosen, or we're we descend from this, that, and the other. And you hear them having these lives or these comments about this. You'd have to ask these white folks, well, what is their aim? What are you trying to what's going on? But you'll know if you translate whatever they say through right brain methodology. You understand? We translate it through left brain. Our ego will be the only thing that gets the benefit from, because we're like, oh yeah, you see, he's saying it. And that's what you'll see sometimes. You'll see a brother or somebody who caught their video, and they'll post their video. And their image will be next to the talker, and they'll be making all kinds of expressions or whatnot, because they're admiring that. Hey, see, this white guy is saying that we're great people, or that we're da 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 da, this, that, and the other. We don't need their validation. You understand? We don't need any validation from anybody. You understand? To identify who we are, or to express um what we've gone through. If it, like I said, there's that saying, actions speak louder than words. If you really mean something, instead of just having yards full of yard signs, your yards full of Black Life Matter yard signs, what are you doing? You understand? What are you doing? What are you actively out there doing to make a difference? Not what you're yapping on IG every now and then you feel like getting up. What are you actively doing? Do something, do stuff. And it doesn't have to be amongst us, among your own people, because that's where the threat is. That's where our problem lies. They're the ones causing us the problems when it comes to that. So don't just get on IG and yap to, what you want, a pat on the back or something because you realize what we're suffering. What is the game? What is it? What is your angle? Right brain, family. The study, it says, why study genetics? Sidney Brenner, writing in the 100th issue of Trends in Genetics in 1993, made the prediction that genetics as a separate subject would have disappeared by the year 2000, because all biology would be gene centered and all biologists would be geneticists. The prediction may have been realized because of the advances in sequencing genomes and microarray technology, which are now used by most biologists. But it is still true that genetics offer a viewpoint and a range of experimental approaches that find application in many areas of biological inquiry. Genetics has always been concerned with the problem, it's calling it a problem, with the problem of how the hereditary information in DNA controls what an organism looks like and how it works. Classically, see, they're just dealing with the physical realm. Classically, it involves the use of genetic variant mutants in parentheses to upset the biological functions of the cells or organisms, and from the effect of these mutations to make deductions about the way cells and organisms work. One thing that I notice about a lot of some of their students of learning is how negative their outlook about being is. Everything has got to be is doing something where it's trying to attack or it's trying to. It's a problem that has to that's trying to find a solution, or it's always some type of issue or some type of drama in it. It can't be just a natural chord following a natural way. It's always a problematic. Um, at the molecular end of the subject, the availability of sequence information in genomic analysis, together with sophisticated techniques for gene replacement and analysis of gene expression patterns, in parentheses, microarray technology, gives us much more powerful tools for looking at the way genes work to make us what we are. And they're only dealing with a what, not a who. We got to deal with what and who. At the only because what only defines your physical, the things that make up your presence here. Who identifies with you as you manifest your very being. Like I said, take away the pomegranate peeling and its fruit, and what do you have remaining? One of the most oh I said at the other extreme of the subject, a knowledge of genetics is fundamental to the understanding of how organisms, populations, and species evolve. One of the most exciting developments in the subject in the last few years is the way in which these two extremes have begun to approach each other through the application of the new molecular systematic uh, uh, um, to the problems of development, evolution, and what does it say? Oh, speculation. I can't see. I couldn't tell if that was IRL. Specu. Hold on. These letters are so small. Can I make this larger? Spatiation. Okay. Geneticists believe that the methods and techniques of genetics are applicable throughout the spectrum of biology or biological activity and are as relevant to molecular biology as to population studies. See, they're talking about what I mentioned earlier. When they study things, the collective. When it comes to something like this, they want to see how the collective responds. In fact, some of the experiments that they did against some of our immediate ancestors, our more recent ancestors, like the Tuskegee and all that, they did it to a population of us, not just individual, but a population, because they wanted to see how we responded as a species. Because, like I said, they know that we're not them. So, our so whatever how they might respond to a thing might not be the same as how we respond. They want to see how we respond to certain things. At the other end of the spectrum of knowledge of genetics is fundamental to an understanding of the evolution of a population of species. Like I said, the collective. Um, let's see here. I have one more image. I got one more image here. This is we're on the topic of genetics. I just thought this was something interesting. Now, can you imagine that all these, not one of these people that you see in any of these images descended from the Neanderthal? Not one of them have Neanderthal genetics at all. All the people you see here are what we would classify, quote unquote, as black people. So these are examples of how diverse that term can mean, based upon, the lineages and where they, you know, where they live. But at the end of the day, you got to understand that all of these are in effect family. They're all kinfolk. They're all kin. They're all you're connected. You're connected to these variations in some way or another. Whether you realize it or not. And you can see as diverse as each group is, but one thing they all have in common, in addition to being black, is that none of them descended from the Neanderthal. None. None. And you can take that as far back as you want to go. Look. So, okay. So, okay, we're now at 2.5 hours. So no one has clicked the link. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare to sign off from this live. And I hope that what we did get to cover this evening, I hope that what we did get to cover this evening has been something that has been something of a blessing, of a benefit to our people. Cause us to be inspired to continue furthering, any progress towards, uh, unity, towards loving ourselves, loving our ancestry, and getting closer to restoring ourselves and our identity, what we are, who we are, being that again. Um, Something that our ancestors, if they were to look at our time at us, they'd be proud to see. You understand? After you consider all that we've gotten to get us to where we are today. So, yeah, that's good. We've got to definitely keep up our studies, family. We can't slack on the knowledge tip. It's good to be inspired to do certain things on the activist tip, but we got to keep our minds um properly um informed. You understand? So that way we know what the struggle is for. So that way you know what you're standing up for. You know what you're defending when it comes to seeing the bloodshed, the brutality happening to our people. You begin to gain more respect because you know what it means for a life to be lost from amongst our people. It's no small issue. It's no small thing that just happened there. You see, that isn't why we exist, to be annihilated per se. That's not why we exist. We have an agenda. An end game, a goal. A person could say, well, there is a benefit in martyrdom. There is a benefit, that abruptly takes us on to the next level. Yeah, there's some truth when it comes to the knowledge of life and death, but you got to understand that that each one of us represents a vital part of this whole of our success. You understand? And if we're upon that success, if we're participatory to that success, each one of us are factors. That saying that the death of a scholar. You understand? They consider the death of the scholar a very widely matters, like the death of an entire library. Of all the libraries on the world, it's like the death of an entire library. The death of a scholar. The death. They say the death of a conscious man is like the death of an entire community of people. So it's no small matter when you see a black man or a black woman or a black child's life being taken unjustly. It's no small thing. A lot has been lost at that point. We've lost vital uh, potential at that point. That may have been the very doctor that our community needed, or the very warrior, or the very soldier, or the very somebody that could have made all the difference. A lot of times we complain about, oh man, I wish we could do this, or I wish we had that. And a lot of times the ones that would bring that about, their lives have been taken. The ones that would have invented that, their life has been taken. The ones that would have fought for that, their lives have been taken. The ones that would have stood up with you and fought with you, their lives have been taken. The ones that would have supported and been there strong, their lives are being taken. Their mouths are being muzzled. They're being locked away and shunned from society. We got to realize, that when we operate as a collective, the outcome, the effects are much, much different than when we leave each other to our own devices. Like, oh, well, that's him. That's you. You do you. You're on your own. No, we're a people. We are a people, family. And we need to understand what that means and manifest what that means, and benefit each other with what that means sooner than later. Because in so many ways, time is running out for everybody. You understand? To figure out what it is that you're going to do in this life. Well, keep on loving, keep on spreading peace, keep on being, among those who insist on unity, who insist on self-determination, who insist that, these are our divine rights. Keep on spreading the news, keep on spreading the love. This is your brother Abdul Wadud, aka Quest Man. Another live soul journey of life, the Conscious Black social media. Just making sure the light works. Yeah. Everybody, you have a blessed day, and that my prayer is that in whatever you're doing upon a righteous cause, that's towards the way of righteousness, that you succeed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Ramadan Mubarak for all those who are participating in the fast of the month of Ramadan. And Hotep, Shalom, peace be with the family as well. Take care.
Light.